Victor earns 25 cents every time he returns a luggage card, which he keenly identified as a business opportunity. He noticed that some lazy passengers at the airport don't bother returning their cards after use, as more and more cards are returned to their original positions. Victor starts earning a considerable income. After going hungry for 3 days, he buys a hamburger with the money he earned and finds it delicious for the first time. Just a few days ago, Victor arrived in New York from his hometown. But as soon as he got off the plane, airport staff took him to the office, and security confiscated his passport and return ticket. The airport official broke the bad news to him. His country had suddenly gone to war, rendering his passport and visa invalid. Because of the language barrier, Victor seemed to have trouble understanding Dixon's words. Dixon took out a bunch of things and gestured with his hands, trying to make Victor understand. Without a valid passport and visa, he couldn't enter another country, let alone go back home. Victor became stateless. Victor is only temporarily arranged to stay in the airport lounge. The security guard gave him a pager, some free meal vouchers, and a phone card, promising to notify him immediately if there's any news. At that moment, Victor noticed the news about his country playing on the television nearby. Though he couldn't understand what was being said, the images of warfare made him realize that his country was facing a disaster. Victor cried out in desperation, hoping someone would tell him what was happening. But the passing passengers were too preoccupied with their own journeys to pay attention to this stranger. Victor felt immensely saddened. He had only taken a nap on the plane. It felt as though the whole world had abandoned him. A loneliness and helplessness washed over him in an instant. The war rendered his currency worthless, but luckily he still had some free meal vouchers. The next day, he went to the visa processing window. The staff member, Ali, told him that without a passport, he couldn't apply for a visa. Victor spent the entire day in line there, only to be rejected in the end. That day, a flight attendant accidentally slipped, and Victor quickly helped her to a nearby bench. After expressing her gratitude, Mia got up and left. Victor thought it was a beautiful encounter, but Mia was already taken. However, fate had other plans for them. That day, Victor encountered Mia again at the airport, and he burst into tears. Deeply saddened, the Victor, who pretended to be on the phone nearby, handed him tissues. He believed that a woman as outstanding as Mia would surely find better love. That evening, due to a language barrier, a passenger couldn't understand what the security personnel were saying and wanted to take unlabeled medication. Dixon comforted the passenger and convinced them to put the knife down. The familiar accent reminded the staff of Victor. So, they brought Victor over and asked him to help translate the airport regulations for the passenger. Victor explained that the medication required an export permit to leave the country. The passenger mentioned that the medication was essential to save his father's life. He knelt down, pleading with Dixon to make an exception, but the security was prepared to escort the passenger onto the plane forcibly. Hearing the passenger's pleas, Victor urgently stopped the staff and explained that in their country, the pronunciation of father and goat sounded similar, and he mistook goat for father. Victor had read the airport regulations regarding the import and export of medications. If the medication was for human use, indeed, an export permit was necessary, but if it was for animals, it wouldn't require a permit. With Victor's hint, the passenger said the medication was for a goat. In the end, the staff returned the medication to the passenger, who hugged Victor in gratitude. Victor became a hero unafraid of authority, and people looked at him with admiration. It felt wonderful to do a good deed. After Victor's friends learned about his feelings for Mia, they decided to help him create an opportunity to reunite with his goddess. They first sneaked into the office to get Mia's flight information, and Victor even splurged on a new outfit. He practiced greeting himself in front of the mirror repeatedly. When Mia landed at the airport, Luca first blocked her path with a car. Then the janitor continued to steer her in a different direction. And finally, the appearance of the porter made Mia accidentally fall into Victor's arms. They went to the airport terrace together, where their friends acted as restaurant waiters. Mia saw through everything but didn't let on. Victor made an effort to find topics that Mia was interested in, and they went from discussing ancient Rome to modern history. Mia decided to bid farewell to her past self. She wanted to let go of the past and start anew. They agreed to meet again in 2 weeks at the same place. Soon, the day arrived for Mia and Victor's agreed meeting. Victor brought Mia to a spot where a gift was waiting, and with a gun he carried, he told Mia the purpose of his visit to New York. In the photo was his father's favorite band, to whom his father had written hundreds of letters. He had already obtained the autographs of 56 members. Recently, his father passed away due to illness, and the signature of the last band member became his regret. As this member lived in New York, Victor's purpose for this trip was to fulfill his father's wish. Mia was touched by Victor's sincerity and kindness, And at that moment, the relationship was solidified. Victor was notified that the war in his country had ended, and he could go home. Mia brought him a temporary visa, and Victor invited Mia to join him in fulfilling his father's wish. Finally, Victor found the 57th band member and helped his father fulfill his wish. In one's life, there are many stops, and happiness is not unattainable. As long as we face life's challenges with optimism, happiness will come as expected when we have a heart as radiant as the sun. Despite the difficulties, we can traverse the fog and reach the destination of happiness.